Welcome, everybody. It is 7 o'clock sharp, and we said we're going to start on time. And so if there's any stragglers that come in later, that's perfectly fine. But we do want to get started just because we want to respect everyone's time. So, Bojie, take it away.
All right. Welcome, everybody. So, to this, hold on, there's a couple of more people that are coming through. Yep, everybody's really on time today.
I told them
So,
it's going to be on
yeah,
time.
right. Well, welcome, everybody, to this first time home buyer webinar. And we'll make this process as simple and enjoyable as we can. And while I am going to be presenting, Katie will be monitoring the chat. If you guys have any questions, you guys just type that in, or you guys can simply raise your hand at the chat box. We will get to all your questions at the end of the presentation. So yeah, with that, let's get started. All right. So yeah, my name is Bojie. I'm with Radius Agents, and my partner Katie. She is with Viridian Mortgage. We've been working together for the last about 10 years in the Bay Area, helping buyers and sellers with real estate. And through that time, we have figured out, what buyers and sellers want in any markets. And our goal is to make this home buying process as enjoyable and as simple and straightforward as we can. So today's goal of the webinar is to, number one, answer any questions you may have regarding to this process and give you a deep rundown on how a home buying process work altogether. And Katie is going to introduce you how the mortgage financing side of things work. And don't forget, like right now, the government's got some grants and programs out there that are literally giving you free money when you buy your first home. So you definitely don't want to miss out on that. Plus, I am also offering a free bonus of $1,000 towards your first purchase through us this year. So stay focused. And so basically, let's jump into the home buying process right now. And typically, this is what we found as the most optimal process when it comes to home buying. So the first step is obviously you want to make sure you get educated by aligning yourself with a great real estate agent. And there's a lot to learn. So align yourself with a great team and resources will definitely help you and will be very beneficial. And especially attending a first-time home buyer webinar like this, it's another great way to start with getting yourself educated. And the second step is getting pre-approval with your mortgage broker. This is something Katie will get into later on. And then, start house hunting with your realtor. And this is where the fun parts begin, where you get to tour homes and take a look at different types of homes, what's on the market. Some are pretty, some are not so, and you get to have a little bit of fun with this process. And once you get serious with certain type of properties, that's when you start doing your research, we call the due diligence. And once the decision is made that you would like to move forward with your target property, that's when you submit offers. And also that's when you start doing the negotiation with the seller. And this is another process which we will get into in just a little bit. So once the negotiation is finalized and the deal is made, and the last step is definitely, you're done. You're getting ready to move into your dream home. So that's as simple as it gets. And how you guys feel is not that bad, right? And I mean, if you guys feel it's pretty easy and straightforward, just type in 1 at the chat box. And if you feel like, wow, this is still a lot to get through, just type 2. We will make sure that, at the end of this whole process, you're going to feel a lot easier because, at the beginning, it might be a lot of stuff to look out for, a lot of things to to be careful about, but it is our job to make you feel better at the end of this webinar so that you can feel safe about making a decision on your biggest purchase in your life. So there are a few common myths around buying a home that I would go over first. And the first one is I should wait until the market to go down. And the truth is about this myth is that there's always this thought of timing the market, not just in today's market. In any market, everybody thought that they could time the market, but nobody really knows where the market is going in the short term, especially here in the Bay Area. What we do know is that, Bay Area real estate has appreciated over the last 30 years due to jobs and cost of livings going up. And the real estate and overall will continue to go up in the future. So as far as why buy now, here are a few reasons to consider before making your decision. The first one is interest rate. Obviously, now the rates are a little bit higher compared to during the pandemics. But here's a saying: rates are temporary. Date the rate and marry the house, and that's something Katie will reinforce with you later. And competitions. So buyer competition was insane just about 2 years ago in 2021. Homes were selling literally like in 5 days. And just because they're asking for $1 million doesn't mean you can get it for $1 million. And you have no idea how much you're going to end up having to pay for a house that's asking for $1 million. Well, in today's market, the competition is not as crazy as back then. So it is a lot easier for buyers to buy a home without having to deal with all these crazy competitions like in 5 days. And long-term investment growth. So obviously, if you own a home, you get to build equities and potential home value appreciations, and you get to pay down your debt. And pride of home ownerships. If you're a renter, you can't really do anything about the property. But if you are a homeowner, you feel more stable and secure. And then you feel like you are part of a community, and you can do whatever you want to the property to make your living more comfortable. And there's tax benefit and wealth building. So, these are basically reasons why home ownership is still one of the most it's still one of the quickest ways to realize American dream. So here's a little bit of a information on the side, and this is the existing home inventory chart. As you can see, in the mid 2000s, the inventory, the new construction homes inventory had reached its peak. And then what happened in 2008 is, the Great Recession. That's when a lot of these home builders went out of business, and the new home supply suddenly plummeted. And then in the last 10 years, we had the economic recovery, and jobs are coming back, and we have more population growth with people coming, coming from all over the world for jobs. And however, though, a lot of these new home builders, they went out of business. They were never able to come back and start building more homes to catch up with the new demand. And then during the pandemics, when supply chain starts to have issues, the home building materials weren't readily available. The home building process starts to slow down. Plus, in the second half of last year, when the interest rate went up by almost 2%, then a lot of these new homes start having trouble selling, and that also made them start to slow down their home building process. So overall, in the long run, there's still experts estimate there's still 5 to 10 years for home builders to catch up with the current growing demand of new home ownership. And this chart, we're talking about a correlation between recessions and home price drops. A lot of people automatically think that recession automatically equals housing market crash, but that's not necessarily true. Like in this graph, where you see all these black bars are all of the recessions since the 60s. And the white curve is where you have all these like real estate prices going up and down. So we can see in 2008, during the most recent Great Recession, the home price did go down by quite a bit. But all the other recessions where all these other black bars take place, the home price didn't necessarily go down. A lot of times they were just flattened out. So based on all that, in summary, as far as the first myth is concerned, like, I should wait until the market to pull back. Here's what the summary is. Inventory is still very low and the demand is very high. And, therefore, the housing stays strong typically throughout recessions, except a few big ones in the last 10 years. And the cost of living goes up, inflation goes up. And, real estate is still going to be one of the best investments to hedge against inflations. So waiting for the housing market, it's almost impossible unless you're looking to purchase a home and then keep it for a short term and then sell it for profit, like flip, which is a completely different way of looking at it. If you're looking to purchase a home for a long time, I would say as long as you're okay with the price and the monthly payment, and if you like the property, I would say any time is a good time. And now the second step is getting pre-approval. So, and this is going to be one of the most important steps because it has everything to do with determining your buying power and your eligibility. So, you may actually be surprised that you could actually afford a lot more than you originally thought. And this is also a common myth when it comes to buying a home. So Katie is going to explain to you why this is going to be a myth, which is I can't afford to buy a home.
Well, good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining. And just to reintroduce myself real quick, I am Katy Care, and I am a mortgage broker and partner at Ready Mortgage. And so this myth is actually one that I personally thought myself. And I was just about to renew my lease, and my parents told me that they really encouraged me not to rent again because they said, why would you pay somebody else's mortgage? Might as well pay for your own, because they really believed in building wealth through real estate. So I really didn't think about it. I just thought, well, it's kind of cheaper for me to rent. But because of them, I really looked into it. So if you were to look at kind of the next slide, you'll see that this is kind of a typical house that you can find probably like, I just took one that's around 850,000. The comparable rent in this area is about 3,500. So for me, when I was going through this process, I was looking at what I was paying in rent and what the mortgage would be, my housing payment. I couldn't qualify at that time because I had just started a business, and it was hard for me to qualify. However, kind of found creative ways. My parents actually co-signed for me at that time to get my first condo. And so I know not everybody has, the opportunity to have a co-signer. However, it's never too early to actually get an idea of where you are so you can get to where you want to go or hit your goals a little bit faster. There are a lot of different programs out there. They all have different guidelines. So it is good to just kind of take a look to see what you could qualify for, or start the process at least. But when you pay rent, typically you'll see that it will increase every year. If you have a really nice landlord, maybe not every year, but overall rents do increase. So after a certain time, there might be an actual where your mortgage payment or your total housing payments actually could be less than your rent. Of course, it's case by case basis, but it is something to explore if you're already paying high rent in the Bay Area. So on the next slide, you'll see kind of the benefits that kind of Bojie was talking about. This is a chart of predictions of owning a home, the specific $850,000 home after 10 years, how much equity you would build from it. So for me, I'm really happy that my parents did urge me to buy my first home. It was a condo, but after a couple of years, I actually sold that at a profit, and it would help me use that money to buy a single family house And short time after that, a few years, I built a lot more equity there. And I actually sold that house and I bought 2 more homes, one investment and one that I live in. So I think it's definitely, there are so many benefits in doing it. If you can, I definitely, like what Bojie said, do not try to time things. The sooner the better, really, to get that process started. So the next slide, we kind of talk about a little bit about the owning versus renting. So when you think about owning, picture taking money from your right pocket and putting into your left pocket. It's kind of similar to that, because when you are paying your mortgage, you are paying for your own house. It's like another savings account for you. When you are renting, you're paying somebody else's mortgage. There's no tax benefits. So there's another big reason to kind of rethink, like, okay, well, maybe my monthly housing payment is a little bit higher, because I think in the Bay Area, we see that a lot. It is more in terms of cash output. It is more when you have the whole housing payment versus renting. Other parts of the country or other even parts of California, maybe that's not the case. Maybe it might be similar, but I know in the Bay Area, it is something I hear a lot of hurdle is, oh, I don't know if I can afford it. This is more than what I'm paying right now. But again, there are so many benefits that if you can qualify for a mortgage, this is a huge reason why you want to get started. So the next slide, you'll see the myth that I hear a lot. And maybe nowadays people might know that there are other options other than just 20% down. So in the next slide, you'll see that there are lower down payment programs, FHA, which is starting at 3.5%, even conventional loans, 3 to 5%. If you are a vet, starts at 0%, and there are also down payment assistance programs. So the next one I will talk about, this is probably the most popular program right now that you might hear a lot of buzz about. It's not even out yet, but starting on March 27th, there's going to be a new program called the Dream for All Shared Appreciation Loan. And so this would allow first-time home buyers to possibly get up to 20% of the purchase, and it will be a shared appreciation loan. So that means that when you sell the house, you'd pay back, you use the proceeds of the sale, you'd pay back the down payment, and then you would do a split appreciation. The other one, the one underneath, is the Empowered Down Payment Assistance Program. So this one is not a shared appreciation. So all the appreciation is yours. But this one, it's giving you 2 to 3.5% of the purchase price. That's really awesome because that's free money. It's not money that you have to give back. It's not shared appreciation. Of course, if you were to compare the two, you'll see that one is up to 20%, which potentially gets you a higher purchase price. But the other one gives you free money where you don't have to pay back. And so in the Bay Area, the maximum loan amount is $1,089,300. So you're very, very max. If you were to take advantage of it, it'd be close to it's around like 1.1 million and up to $39,000 for free. So the next slide will show you that, I mean, this is a program that I worked on, our office did last year. There was a forgivable equity builder, and this was 10% forgivable. So if you were to just live in the house for 5 years, 10% was just gone. Like you didn't have to pay it back. But as you can tell where I highlighted, they ran out of funds. So when you hear about these down payment assistance programs or grants, they do run out, and it's not something, that we can really control. Once the funds are gone, they're gone. So I definitely encourage people to take advantage and really explore them when they're available. Okay, so the next slide I'll talk about the down payment sources. So, we talked about down payment assistance programs, but if you want to look through another loan where you do want to put some down payment because of the terms, your checkings, savings, stock, retirement, I think a lot of people forget that they can possibly get a loan from their 401k without penalty. So you just have to check with your 401k administrator to see if you can borrow some of that. And you're pretty much borrowing against from yourself, and then later you can return it back. Also gifts. So if you have a family member that is willing to gift you some of the down payment, that's another way to get qualified for a loan in regards to a lower down payment that you have on your own. So on the next slide, you'll see the 4 buckets, really what a loan really consists of. The lender is going to look at the property. They're going to look at your assets. They're going to look at your income. So pay stubs, W-2, tax returns. They're going to look at your credit. They're going to pull your credit. So these are the 4 buckets. And usually when people start the pre-approval process, I'll let them know what they have to provide for that. So this is kind of what the loan process looks like. I won't go through all of it because Bojie is actually going to be going, because they kind of go hand in hand with the whole purchase contract for your house. But once you get pre-approved, you'll see why there is really like a 30-day or anywhere from 15 to 30 days of time for you to be able to close on that loan, because there's so many steps and so many people that are involved. So after you actually work with a loan officer and you're pre-approved, then the fun starts. You get to go house hunting with your realtor.
All right, thank you, Katie. So now, after you get pre-approved, we're looking at properties right now. So besides looking at the pretty pictures and the fake furnitures of each properties, what are some other researches and due diligence you have to do to make sure you've done your homework? And if you were to make a decision, that's going to be a great decision. So this comes to typically 3 types of due diligence that we typically have to do, and we encourage buyers to do before making any decisions. And they are property condition due diligence, location due diligence, and market condition due diligence. And I'll go over each one and explain to you what each one of these due diligence are all about. So the first one is property condition due diligence. This means we're going to have to look at the property condition, not just from visuals, things that you can see, you can touch, because obviously that's something everybody can see, but also look at things that are not so obvious at a glance. This includes inspection and termite reports. Sometimes seller provides you with the inspection and termites that they have done by hiring a third-party company. We'll just read about it and go through what's being noted and determine whether there's certain things that needs to get to our attention or not. If the seller doesn't provide, I highly recommend buyers to do their inspection before agreeing on the final negotiation terms. And any costly item repair estimates, this could be if the roof needs to be replaced, if the water heater needs to be replaced, furnace or electric panels or the floor, any of these things that is going to cost you some money, and you want to know what the conditions look like. Property grading. We just had a huge rain in the last couple of days. You want to make sure every time when the water comes down, the water is not going into your foundation through the vent. It's actually going out through your driveway and to the outside. And that's something you want to look at, is how is the property graded so that your foundation doesn't get flooded. There are techniques you can do. And any other noticeable code violations. A lot of these homes are built in the 50s and 60s, and the safety code or whatever construction code back then is not necessarily the same as it is today. So if you purchase a home that has code violation and you later on want to remodel this property, you have to take care of all these code violations before you can do. These could be things that you didn't think about that's going to add additional costs to what you want to do. And I'm not going to go into all these due diligence in greater detail. At the bottom of this slide, you'll see a YouTube link. I have several YouTube videos which I record myself live going into different types of properties and pointing things out so you guys can see it yourself as an example. Feel free to copy the link and watch it later. Or if you want, you can enter you can enter through the chat box, and I'd be happy to send that link to you. Or if you have any other property that you wanted to have a quick closer look at the conditions, feel free to reach out and I'll see what you're dealing with. So that's bottom line, the property condition due diligence. Secondly, is the location due diligence. You're purchasing a home, you want to make sure the location meets your criteria. Number one, you definitely need to know about what are the natural hazards around this location. Is it earthquake? Is it a flood zone? Is it liquefaction or fires, whatnot? You definitely want to know about it. School, obviously, a lot of people purchase home because they want to make sure it goes to the school that they like. Crime reports, definitely. You want to make sure you visit the property during the daytime and you drive by at night. And you kind of want to read about the report and get an overall feeling about whether this place is a place you want to call home or not. Flight pattern, some people are very sensitive about noise, some people are not, but that's one thing you should know about. Whether your home is on a flight pattern or not. There are websites you can go look up those informations. Radon map, yep, you definitely want to see if there's any radon radiation exposures near your home. So there are websites that you can go look that up. Superfund sites. Superfunds are, some of these like heavy manufacturing sites that were once there and it's no longer there. And you definitely want to know what are some of the Superfund sites and where's your property in proximity with Superfund sites so that you know about what would be the potential pollutions if you purchase a home in those areas. And there are websites to look at each of these location situations, and I'd be happy to email those informations to you at the end of this presentation. So just type that in the checkbox if that's something you're looking you would like to have. And the last thing would be market due diligence. So here we're not really talking about market prediction. When we're doing research on market due diligence, we're not talking about is the market going to go up or down in the next 6 months. What we're really trying to do is we're trying to figure out what's the current market conditions so that when we make an offer, what are we dealing with? So some of the elements are, buyer market versus seller market, days on market, list versus sold price, average sold price, identify market trends. So let me give you an example. So in the months of February, in the entire Santa Clara County single family home, 358 were sold, and we have 733 that are actively for sale, which means it's slightly a seller market because 700 divided by 350, roughly it's about 2. So that means we have 2 months of inventory, which still makes it a seller market. It's just not as crazy as during the pandemics. Days on market on average is 33 days. Versus during the pandemic, it takes about 10 days for a home to sell. So you can see definitely homes are not selling as fast, but it's still far from being a buyer's market where homes would typically take 100 days to sell. List versus sold price, it's about 100%, which means homes are mostly getting what they were asking for. An average sold price is about $1.8 million for single family, and for townhomes, it's about 1.1, and for condos, about 700. And market is currently more naturalized, which means they're more flattened out right now. So if you were to make any type of offers, knowing these data is definitely going to help you understand what type of competition you're dealing with and what type of offer you should make. So that would be the market due diligence. So hopefully, after that, you should have enough information to do your own research or with the help of an agent to help you get a more educated and more prepared decisions on whether you should go forward with this property or not. So let's say you do decide to make an offer. This will take us to the fourth step, which is to make an offer and negotiate terms. A lot of people always ask, what does an offer consist of? So the first thing is the price. What is the price you're willing to pay and the seller is willing to accept? Secondly is the terms. This means, about timings and financial considerations, how many days do I need to close on a loan, and how long do I need to close on an escrow? Do I need to give deposit in 24 hours versus 48 hours, and all that? And who's keeping the water? Who's keeping the washer and dryer? And is the seller staying for another 30 days after the close of escrow as rent back? All these are considered terms, and these are all negotiable. And contingency. These are conditions that allows buyers to opt out of a deal without risking their deposit. These could be, like I said, if you're doing your home inspections and you find out there are issues about the property that you don't like, and you want to cancel because of that, that will be an inspection contingency. And if the property doesn't appraise to the amount that you offer, if you decide to not purchase it, that will be considered a appraisal contingency. And then there's also going to be a loan contingency, which means if you don't get the loan, then you're not purchasing the home. So any offer consists of these three elements. And now a seller, when they look at your offer, they can do one of the three things. They can either reject your offer, or they can counter your offer, or they can accept your offer. And if they do, your offer is considered, it's accepted, then it becomes what we call pending. And here it's showing you after you and the seller are officially under contract, like pending, what the timeline is looking like. So first, you would make a deposit to the escrow company. And this would officially means that this property is taken off the market. It will no longer accept new offers once seller accepts your deposit. And the next step is you should get started with your loan application as soon as this property is officially in pending, the moment you drop your deposit. And then right away, you will be ordering appraisals and home inspection if you decide to, when the seller hasn't supply you with their own inspections. So that's when you would start doing immediately. And once the appraisal report comes back and the home inspection reports comes back, that's when you start possible negotiation, a second round of negotiation based on these results. Seller might give in, you might give in, you guys might meet in the middle somewhere. That's where all these activities take place during this step. And the next step is definitely when the loan application gets approved and you're ready to close. And that's when money is funded into the escrow account. And the last step is when you're ready to close, you're bringing down payments and the closing costs as to the escrow on the day of closing. Typically, before that, the escrow company will send you something they call the closing estimate. That's where they're going to tell you how much cash you need to bring, which includes your down payment, any type of escrow fees, depending on the county, and your prorated property tax, all that minus the deposit that you have already made. And that closing estimate is what you're going to go by when it comes to bringing the down payment and the closing costs. So that would be the last step. And once you complete that, you're basically coming to the last step of the home ownership, which is moving into your dream home. So on the closing day, these are the things that you will bring. You bring your verified fund, typically is a cashier's check, and your valid ID just to identify yourself. And what you'll typically receive is a settlement document, a transfer of a clean title, and the new keys to your home. And typically you'll get a little bit of a refund from the closing costs, because they typically will estimate a little bit higher for you, the amount for you to bring. And after that, you'll typically get some money back from the escrow company. So that would be the closing date. So far, so good, right? We have gone through the entire home buying process. And if you are still feeling stressed, overwhelmed, and oh my God, type 1, if you feel like this is easy, I can totally do this, type 2. And yeah, if you just woke up, you're wondering what time it is, yeah, type 3 too. I'm just kidding, just kidding. So now, with the process being done, let's quickly go through some of the quick mistakes when it comes to home buying. The first one is don't sweat the small stuff. It's the big stuff that really matters. And what I mean by big stuff, so here are a handful of these things, and hopefully when you're doing your property tour or looking through the inspection report as part of your like property due diligence, you should be going through some of these items. If the foundation has any cracks or like structural shift, that's a big deal. Yeah, that's going to cost you a lot of money to get the foundation fixed. Water stain in the ceiling, floor, walls, all these indicates, this property had been like water damaged before. Okay, you definitely need to know about it. Faded or worn shingles. Replacing a roof can cost you anywhere between 30,000 to 100,000, depending on the size of the home. Plumbing or electrical problem. So if your electric panel is from Zensco or Pacific Federal, those are known. Those panels have known issues with the breakers. So replacing those panels could cost you a couple $1,000s. Mold and termite issues. So a lot of these old homes had never done termite treatments before. So any property that's been around for 40, 50 years without going through the termite treatments could cost you between $4,000 to $10,000 for fumigating and treating the termites. So that will be something you'll look at the termite report to know exactly what the cost is. Poor grading, like we've talked about, and any major code violation, that's something we've talked about. So these are the things that you want to make sure you pay attention to when it comes to purchasing a home. And the second mistake is obviously not making competitive offer. This ties back to the market due diligence. So a lot of buyers ask me, can I make a lowball offer and see if we can negotiate and get something from the seller? Well, here's typically the thing. You really need to know what the average days on market is at that point in time when you're making an offer. And you need to know what are typically what kind of price list to sold ratio homes are selling for. That way, if the property just came on the market for like literally in 5 days, sellers are very less likely to entertain any offers that are less than what they're asking for because it's only been on the market for 5 days. But if the property's been on the market for a lot longer and it hasn't been sold, then you could potentially have more negotiating power. So making a lowball offer on the property that just came on the market in 5 days, 2 days, that's going to be a waste of your time and the seller's time. So that's mistake 2. And Katie would start talking to you about mistake 3, which is making your buyer decision based on rates.
Yeah, so a lot of times when I go through the pre-approval process, this happened definitely more this past year, when rates have gone up. They'll be perfectly pre-approved, but sometimes I hear, well, I don't want to do it because the rate is high. So there's a difference between not being able to qualify because the rate is high. That's a totally different story. If somehow the rate increased and you're not able to qualify anymore, then of course you kind of have to wait until you can become a pre-approved. However, if someone is just doing it based on rate, I definitely do think this is a big mistake. Because on the next slide, you'll see, you'll kind of tell when the rates come down, the buyer pool is higher because more people are able to be qualified. And what happens is the price goes up because there's more competition. I think not understanding the process that the loan is temporary, you are not stuck with the loan for 30 years. It is really a way for you to purchase the home at that moment. So if you find a home and you are pre-approved, and on top of that, you are comfortable with the monthly payment, it is something that you can afford and you feel good about. The rate, when it changes, you can refinance. Refinance process is very similar to purchasing, except it's a lot less stressful. There's no contract, but let's say you buy a home at 7% and the rates get better and it's at 5%, you can refinance it. So the loan is really temporary. But because rates are a little bit higher and are expected to come down, there are temporary buy down programs. And this has not been anything I've seen around until obviously this past year when the rates have gone up after the pandemic. So on the next slide, you'll see kind of what it looks like. A temporary buy down program is when the seller provides concession or like a credit, and this will help reduce your interest rate temporarily. So the most popular one that I see that people use right now is the 2-1 buy down. And that means the first year you would get a reduction in rate by 2%. The second year it reduces by 1%. And the third year it goes back to the note rate. So in this example, I have 6.375 as a starting rate. If the first year it's at 4.375, for this particular scenario, you're saving close to $900 per month and so forth. But it's popular because while you're waiting, while you have the temporary lower monthly payment and rate, you're pretty much waiting for the opportune time to refinance. So this is why it's popular, because it's a very temporary kind of thing. You don't really need to pay the discount points to have a permanent buy down. A permanent buy down is if you were to put like a some money to permanently buy down your rate for, if you got a 30-year fix, it'd be the whole entire time. So the next mistake is assuming that all lenders are the same. So lenders are not all the same. Each lender has their particular niche and what they're good at, and they have different programs. So I think a natural question that I hear a lot is, who's better then? Is broker versus bank? But to start, actually, the difference between a mortgage broker and then the bank. So I'm a mortgage broker. An easy way to think about these two is brokers are broke, meaning that they don't actually have the money. They're not holding onto the money. A bank like Wells Fargo, Citi, Chase, Bank of America, the retail banks that you may all know, that's a bank. There's a depository. They have their own money. A broker like me, I work with a lot of different banks. I work with over 80 banks actually, and they all have their own loan programs and what they're good at. So when it comes to the question, who's better? I mean, it sounds like, wow, there's so many more options as a broker, then that must be better. But it's not necessarily. I think it really depends on the loan that you get. Some of the retail banks actually are very, very competitive in certain loan programs. I think what they lack is the variety or the selection, but when you apply for a loan that bank is really good at, then that's the better fit. So it's not always going to be broker. It's not always going to be banker. So on the next video, I'll kind of explain conforming versus jumbo. Also, these are two different types of loans. So conventional loan the conforming loan limit across the country right now is $726,200. In Santa Clara County or other high cost areas in California, the loan limit can be a little bit higher, up to $1,089,000. So a jumbo is not a conventional loan that doesn't get sold to Freddie or Fannie Mac. They have their own specific guidelines. They're portfolio lenders. So this is where like the retail banks, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Chase, and those kind of guys, they're really great at the jumbo loans. The guidelines are usually stricter. Just think about if you have a higher loan amount, but you have a lot of down payment, you have excellent credit, you have very steady income. A lot of times the jumbo retail banks will be very, very competitive. But however, if you're not fitting in that kind of category, usually the broker will be, or the conforming guidelines are a lot looser. They're a little bit easier to qualify. They have fewer reserves. And so when I look at a file, when I look at somebody's application, I do see maybe which bucket they fit in better. If they end up fitting in the jumbos bucket better, and then they can, qualify at another bank that I know has a better rate, I will usually refer them out. Otherwise, Then I go through all of my different lenders. I shop with all my lenders and I kind of present the best options for that borrower. So another mistake is not communicating with your real estate team. So your real estate team, your loan officer, your realtor are really working very hard together to get you through the contract and purchase your home. So sometimes people will tell me like, oh yeah, I just like bought a car, like while after in contract. Things like that can really throw a wrench in the whole loan. So definitely communicate with your real estate team. If you're going to be traveling outside the country during a transaction, that's going to matter because you have to sign loan docs. So anything to do with finances, the cutest thing I've ever heard was like someone called me because they were going to get an engagement ring and they were going to finance that. So I did have to tell him to hold off on that, but he was very smart to ask because sometimes it does impact the loan. So that is the last mistake. Totally open up for questions. If there's any questions, feel free to chat, or you can even, unmute yourself if you want to do that. But so Bojie, I do have a question that I hear a lot on the real estate side. It's kind of why does the list price, like why sometimes like when you see homes listed for sale, they don't match what the Zestimate is?
Right, yeah, that's a great question. I mean, the main thing is that it's the way Zillow comes up with these numbers based on their algorithm. So Zillow basically take a home that's sold within the area. They're supposed to look like the home that you're looking at. And then based on how much this home is sold, let's say 2-3 months ago, and so therefore how much this home should be worth. So they're okay when it comes to just a ballpark comparison. However, though, Zillow will never send anybody to go and take a look at the property on the inside. So they never know what are the upgrades or downgrades or issues or anything with that specific property. So they can only give you a estimate based on what the other home was sold for at that time in the past. And they cannot really predict what the trend is because real estate, remember, typically it's a 60-day or a night or 30-day to 60-day trailing process. That means if the home is sold, it's closed yesterday. That does not really indicate the buyer's behavior as of yesterday, but rather it indicates the buyer's behavior 30 days prior or even 60 days prior. It could be 60 days ago when this home was on the market. At that time, the buyer made a decision to offer that price, and it took 30 to 60 days for the transaction to finish and the home to be sold, and the number gets published. So therefore, to Zillow, it means, that means yesterday somebody paid $1 million to purchase that home. No, not necessarily. It means 60 days ago or 30 days ago, somebody paid $1 million for that home, not yesterday. And now the rates are different, things are different, and therefore buyers relying on Zillow's estimate, it's only as good as it gets. It's a ballpark estimate, but just relying on that solely, that could lead to some like wrong decisions when it comes to buying or selling real estate, and that's why. And yeah, somebody just sent a question. They were asking about whether a foreign national can qualify for any type of mortgage loans or not. What do you say?
So it depends. Not all loan programs will allow it, but some of them will. A lot of the first time home buyer ones that I've worked on does not, like the ones that are grants. It depends on the loan. I have worked with foreign nationals before, but it's not every single loan program. So I think it depends on what the loan terms are. So it's definitely possible though. It's just
Okay,
not going to be as straightforward.
okay. And another question that I just came through is a great question. If I'm looking to buy a complex, a condo in a complex that has more than 50% renters, would that mean, would I still be able to get this property financed? Or is there a requirement of any complex to have less than 50% renter occupied?
Oh, that's a tricky one. So a lot of times I don't think people know to ask that question when they're looking for a condo. So they don't know how that impacts the financing. So in a conventional loan, you cannot have too many renters in there. So like over 51%, that will impact the loan. That doesn't mean it cannot happen. I have lenders that are not doing conventional loans, but I do have lenders that can do that type of loan, but the interest rate will be higher. And also the down payment will be higher as well. So it is, again, it's possible, but because I have access to lenders that kind of have their niches, that they do things like outside the box. But if you want the most standard conventional loan, the best rate, then it would not be with a condo that had a lot of renters in there. So, and without finding out from, the agent or HOA, you really don't know. So this is something that's a great question to kind of ask if you are looking for condos. Oh, but it's that only applies if it's going to be an investment though. So it's okay if you're buying it for your primary. But that is something that you might want to think about if you do want to rent it out later. So yeah, the occupancy does matter.
Great.
We're kind of
I think we're
coming up
right on
today.
time. Yeah. So the last thing we will get to before we take the survey and have everybody out is I do want to mention about this bonus that I talked to you at the beginning. I'm offering this bonus because I want to help you become a homeowner this year. So when you purchase your home through us this year, 2023, by mentioning about this webinar and by completing this survey, you will be qualified for receiving $1,000 credit at the closing of your escrow. And that's going to be our personal gift to you. And with that, there's a survey, Katie, you want to talk about, and you'll have a chance of getting either a free Starbucks or Amazon gift cards from us. So
Okay, so you want to, so I did put in the chat box the link, so you can either use the QR code or you can just click on the link. We will pick a random person and we will send it out tomorrow morning, either a $20 a gift card to Amazon or Starbucks of your choice, which you could just pick one. So this really helps us figure out what people actually want to know about or learn about or how we can improve, because we are in the business and sometimes we might forget what a first-time home buyer is kind of thinking or going through. So we're covering what we hope to be valuable for someone who's looking in the market right now, to let you know what options there are. So with just an hour, there's really not enough time to go in depth. So it was a lot of kind of like a brief overview. But if you guys can give us any feedback, that would be really great. So, and then that's it actually. We can stay a little bit if anybody wants, has any questions. Feel free to stay back if you want us to answer anything for you. Hope it's not too overwhelming. Oh, so a question is, do you think it's a good time to buy now with interest so high? Yes, definitely think so, because kind of mentioned about the fact that the interest rate is very temporary. Once you get into the home, when interest rates come down, you can refinance. But also when the rates come down, a lot of times it gets a lot more competitive because more buyers are in the market. So it kind of pushes the price up. It's actually a very opportune time to do that before rates really come down. Not that anybody knows, but we expect it probably sometime in the summer and this year for rates to come down when inflation is not so high, and all these like weird banking stuff that happens now. I think that is going to kind of slow it down. So yeah, I definitely think this is a good time to buy. It's more a great opportunity to get in. And as long as you hold it for longer term, really the sooner the better. Because over time, the homes appreciate in our area. So over here we have QR code if you want to just set up a free consultation. And what's interesting about our industry, I guess, in the real estate, it doesn't cost anything to the buyer. All the costs for the sale of the home is from the seller. And to apply for a mortgage, there's also there's no cost for that as well. So this is really a free buyer consultation. If there's other questions that you have that you want to get answered specific to you and that you kind of want to do more on like a one-to-one basis, we'd be happy to do that and share knowledge. Or even if you just want to get prepared, even if you don't feel like you're ready right now, but you want to get a temperature check of what you need to do and how close you are, we're happy to help there too. Alrighty.
Yeah, one more thing is like, so guys, make sure you turn in your survey by before today by midnight.
Midnight. Let's say midnight
Tomorrow,
because we'll just pick it tomorrow. And
right,
we'll
we'll pick a winner tomorrow and we will send you the gift card of your choosing, Amazon or Starbucks.
Alrighty. So if we don't have any other questions, we don't have any more of the slides to share. So feel free to kind of end just 4 minutes early. And I hope you guys all have a great evening and thanks for sticking around.
All right, have a good night.
All right. Good night, everybody.